Hi, folks, with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio no pictures live stream. Please listen to this essay as you would a radio broadcast. In this presentation, I'd like to talk about the idea of power and responsibility. Power reflecting, the power to do whatever you want, the riches, glory, prestige, the ability to lord it over others, and so on. And then on the other side of the equation, responsibility and accountability. Now, when I started to move up the executive food chain and was general manager and VP and CEO and all this sort of stuff, I had a steady stream of people knocking on my door, wanting to have a thing. They wanted to get promoted. They wanted to progress up themselves progress up the food chain, and they wanted promotions and pay rises and any accolade they could lay their hands on, and it all came down to power, prestige, and money, really. Now, and if you look at the big three that sort of people are always on the looking out for, sex, power, and money, it sort of really revolves, I guess, back around into that. But some people view power as being, not in its crudest sort of definition, but power as in the authority, the means to do their job. So if if your job is to dig holes in the road, then you need the shovel, and someone's got to give you the shovel. You get the shovel to start digging in the road, and then there needs to be agreements as to how deep and wide the hole's going to be. So you need to have the means to do the task that you have, no matter what it is. If your job is organizational in terms of managing people, that sort of stuff, or if it's say you're a technical salesperson that's selling big ticket technical equipment, you need to have the the expertise and the support and the infrastructure to do the job. So you need the means and the authority, the equipment to go and carry out your task. And that's power in one sense. Then there can be power to swan around like you're big and tough, and again lord it over others, and ride the white horse in the shining armor, and so there are different concepts of what power means. It also, if you look at power to project power, you can demand that people do things they don't want to do because they'll be you can make their life so inconvenient and unpleasant if they don't do what you want, that they have to go along with it, even though typically they don't want to, or see that it's not the right thing to do. So power has what I'm getting at there is power has a number of sort of subdivision areas and or subsets rather, and now responsibility is an accountability, and they're not exactly the same thing, but people certainly that I've spoken to and who came knocking on my door wanting power, again, whether that power was a manifestation in money or prestige, but wanting power, as soon as I'd mention accountability and responsibility, then the look on their face would change from sort of a smirking gloat or a gloating smirk. The expression on their face would change to, in some cases, even outright terror at the thought of being accountable. and so accountability and responsibility were looked at very differently. And very few people thought that the two should go together. And this old adage that with great power comes great responsibility. And that's, I think, really referring to people sort of such as, army generals and prime ministers, presidents, that type of thing. But it could apply on a lesser scale, could apply equally to others. So anyway, people knocking at my door saying, well, I want to get a promotion. Now, when they would talk about the promotion that they wanted, they would state it in terms of what they're going to get. I want that high salary, or I want those big bonus paychecks. I want that nice office that looks over the park, or I want to be, I want respect. I want respect from my fellow, my colleagues, my fellow workers, and if I have that job as the executive director of such and so and so, then I will automatically have respect. People will crawl to me, and they'll want favors from me, and I'll be able to dispense largesse to my friends and deny anything to the people I don't like, and I can stick it up, and so on and so forth. So the idea of power wasn't seen as I want to do the job. I can do that job better than those people or those guys. I can increase the company's sales, or I can increase the company's profits, or I can deliver better quality outcomes than these guys. That was hardly ever it. It was typically always some sort of pursuit of glory, prestige, money, and so on. And particularly a lot of people like the idea of patronage, that they could reward their friends, and their friends would look up to them because they could hand out benefits and promotions and early marks to their friends. So they could say to their friends, "Oh, you can get half an hour. You can go home half an hour earlier today." Anything that was dispensing favors of one sort or another. So, excuse me, I've got a bit of a sore throat today. It typically comes on all the time during hay fever season, and it's no different today. So anyway, this was the structure of it. Now, on the side of responsibility, so I would look at these people and say, okay, now some of them weren't up to the job. There's no way they could do the job. They were just dreamers, and some of them were very earnest and sincere. And sometimes I'd say, okay, well, why don't we give it a try? The opportunity was there. Maybe someone had left, or someone had been promoted to another job, and there was a vacancy. There could be various reasons. And they would come along and say, well, I want to have a go at that, or I want to have a chance at that. And so, in absence of a better or more compelling story, or another applicant rather, or before we'd advertised the job, perhaps, I would go, okay, well, you're certainly keen and eager. Let's give it a try. But some people, they just weren't up to it. They were simply mesmerized by the idea of the power and the glory. But when I would sort of try and explain to them, okay, well, this job carries some responsibility. Let's say it's a like a sales manager's job or something like that. And I mention that because it's like quite a measurable sort of position. You either do or don't make the numbers. So it's okay. You've got 5 salespeople in that area. You're going to be in charge of them, and you're going to have to sell 100. Your budget will be 100 widgets a month across the 5 salespeople. Now, if you don't make those numbers, if it's not 100, if you don't sell 100 widgets in the month, you'll probably only get, because you're an unlikely candidate. You don't come heavily credentialed. If you miss your target one month, by the time the second month, you'll then be on a fairly tight leash in terms of results. And if you haven't made the numbers on the third month, you'll lose the job. You'll get either fired or demoted. Now, do you want to be demoted back to be a sales representative or a business development representative if you fail? I mean, there's a certain amount of sort of humiliation in that. Are you prepared to accept that? And you can see from the look on their face they weren't. The embarrassment will be such that they'd have to leave to avoid having to work day to day alongside people that know that they'd failed. So, okay. Also, the idea of if they aren't making the numbers, they might have to put the heavies on what people who had otherwise been their colleagues to spur them on to greater effort, and that may and probably would create bad blood. So that's not going to work. So, do you really want to go into this situation? Are you confident enough that you can deliver? So they would well, if you're going to fire me after 3 months, it's because you hate me or you don't like me, or if you like me enough, then you'll cut me lots of slack. If you like me, really like me, then you won't judge me on results. You'll you'll judge me on how good I make you feel. And so they try and just, particularly the women were like this, particularly the women, but some of the men, but particularly the women, would try and do a trade-off. If you like me, you won't hold me accountable. So, but nobody wanted to be accountable or responsible. Oh no, I want the glory and I want the prestige. I want that. I don't want the responsibility though. Why do I have to take the responsibility? And this was, it's an infantile way of looking at the world and an infantile way of looking at a job. But one of the things that would always impress me about somebody coming and asking for a promotion or something like that would be that they would lead with not the glory and the prestige, but they would lead with, I'm prepared to accept that responsibility and accountability. I want to be judged by getting results. In this case, selling widgets or whatever it might be. I want to be judged on these results, and I have, they would assert, the ability to get these results through whether it be ingenuity or hard work. Now, sometimes I would think that they, well, yeah, this guy's pretty smart. They're clearly industrious and conscientious. They've got some interesting ideas, and but the thing that impressed me the most was that they would accept responsibility and wanted it and believed or didn't doubt or didn't question that sure, they'd get more power and authority and more levers to pull and buttons to push. They get all that, but they had responsibility that came with it, and they accepted it and agreed. That always impressed me and made me believe that there was a much greater likelihood they would succeed and do well based on that, and that you could have a conversation with them. Now, someone who accepts responsibility, it's much easier to have a conversation with them about how things are going. You say, okay, well, you're missing out on the numbers here. I think this is maybe, have you thought about doing this or that to improve this situation? Billy Bob and your team here, he's got a bit of a thing about you and he's dragging his feet. Why don't we have a word to Billy Bob and just impress upon him that whether he likes you or not, or he thinks he should have got the job or not, he still has to do his job, regardless of what he may or may not think about anything. And then I would lead in the conversation, talking to Billy Bob, so that there wasn't bad blood with the new sales manager, so that there wasn't exacerbating a relationship that may already be a little difficult. So I would go out of my way to support someone who's prepared to accept responsibility, and they would accept as well that, hey, I'm not making the numbers. I've got to lift my game. I've got to try harder here. And they would come to me for some sort of guidance. Look, I'm slipping on the numbers here. What can I do? And then I would sit down with them and go through it. But that acceptance of responsibility was key to me being happy or comfortable with giving additional power to somebody. So, in this case, a promotion, of course, or it could be merging, say, two departments together, which might be tantamount to a promotion without actually being one in any net sense. But even so, the person had, by extension, then more power, and thus they had to accept more responsibility. Now, I found men, for the most, not always, but for the most part, men would accept that responsibility was key. They would look out for prestige and so on was important. They'd be less likely to engage in patronage. Not that they didn't do it or that it never happened, but they were much less likely to engage. They were more likely to see it as a job of work to be done. Now, with women, it was different. There were some exceptions, but every woman that knocked on my door wanted the prestige, wanted the glory, wanted more money, and would say things like, have you any idea how much women's clothes cost? As if that was the justification for getting a promotion. Well, no, and that's got nothing to do with you're getting a promotion. Has something to do with you can do the job. And that they were always put off by that, or again, pretty much always. They would always, the women would always see it as you have to give me this promotion because you like me, and because I make you feel good, not because I can do the job or do it well, or that I want to take a responsibility or so on. And in the few instances where I did So, okay, let's give it a go. I can't recall ever a time where it actually worked out. There might have been a time, but I can't, just off the top of my head, thinking about it now, I can't recall a time where promoting a woman because she requested worked out. They were very reluctant to accept responsibility and accountability. And they could see the numbers as well as I could. You know, you've got to do 100 widgets this month or this quarter or whatever it might be. You've got to do 100 widgets, and you've only done 50 widgets, not 100. And you know, we've got a real problem here. And they would start to obfuscate and dissemble. Well, why do I have to be judged just on that? You know, I brought flowers into the office 3 times this week. Why can't you judge me on the flowers that I bring in? Well, a couple of reasons. One, that's not your job description. Well, it should be in my job description. You shouldn't judge me on what I'm supposed to do, but judge me on the flowers only. And or you know, I came in early to make sure that there was fresh coffee for everybody when they started. And okay, well that's nice, and okay, that's appreciated, but that's not your job. Your job is to sell widgets or to do this or you know, whatever the job was. That's your job. And so they had a huge reluctance on being judged and examined based on results. And now that militated directly against responsibility and accountability. And so they tended to believe that they were being unfairly treated when they were judged on results. So, okay, well, your male colleague in that other department there, he's judged on results. Why shouldn't you be? Oh, well, that's different. And so again, the dissembling. And so matching power and responsibility and accountability together is always tough. And there's only ever been, certainly by my experience, and my experience has been primarily in business, of course, is that there's a very small number of people that are prepared to accept accountability and responsibility, and a very large number that whether it be entitlement or now, when we're looking at today with the affirmative action programs and race gender quota programs and an attitude, you know, look at the media, all they do is peddle lies, and they're outraged at having to be accountable for giving accurate information, outraged by it. You look at politicians at all levels, and the globalist controlled politicians in particular. They again outraged over having to deliver results and outraged over being accountable. And anyone that shows signs of wanting to accept responsibility and accountability is perceived by the globalist class as an enemy of globalization. And so we're living in a world today, and it's become this over the last, well, certainly during my lifetime, that the idea of responsibility and accountability is just not there. It's just not evident. And whether it be in politics, whether it be in media, whether it be in academia, the globalist project has descended or has brought down the entire discourse and behaviour, and this concept of responsibility and accountability has changed it into being something that is optional, if not undesirable, if not something that gets in the way. And those that are prepared to do it accept responsibility and accountability are enemies of the ideology and the globalist ideology, and they're people to be got rid of. And that's a pretty scary thought when you look at it in broader terms. You've been fantastic today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.